Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt that strange tug at your heart when the word around you seemed too loud, too chaotic, too full of clashing voices telling you who you should be, what you should do, and how you should think? Maybe you found yourself wanting to retreat, to shut out all the noise, to listen to that quiet place deep inside where faith whispers and hope flickers. You might think you're alone, but you're not. We've all stood on that threshold, wondering if there's a better way to handle the storms that blow through our lives. I'm here to tell you that God's message is simple yet profound. Trust me, stay silent. It's a call to lean on His wisdom rather than the world's. It's a promise that when we quiet our hearts, we can finally hear what truly matters. You see, this topic isn't just another piece of advice or another motivational slogan. It's not a trendy phrase you'll see on social media. This is a foundational truth that can lift you up from the darkest valleys. Because there comes a moment in every person's life when words fail, when arguments and debates add no value, when noise only multiplies confusion. And in those moments, we realize that maybe there's a divine invitation in our struggles. Maybe the silence isn't emptiness. It's a canvas where God paints His grace. Let me tell you, that is powerful. That is transformative. Because we don't just need to add more to our to-do lists. We need to learn the art of letting go, the art of placing our burdens into the hands of the one who sees beyond our limited perspective. I remember standing on stages feeling so certain about what I had to say, feeling like I had the answers. But life has a way of humbling us. Life can slam us so hard, we start to wonder if we really know anything at all. Maybe you've been there too. Confident at sunrise, questioned by noon, and by nightfall, you're searching for a signal in the silence. Here's the truth in the silence. God still speaks. And when He says, "Trust me," He's not giving you an empty promise. He's inviting you into a peace that surpasses all understanding. So why is this so crucial for us right now? Because the world is noisy. Because your social media feed shouts at you every day. Because your own doubts clamor inside your mind, telling you you're not good enough, not fast enough, not strong enough. Because the pressures of life corner you until you feel like you have to fight back with words or with anger, or with desperate attempts to control the uncontrollable. But let's pause for a moment. Let's take a breath. Let's consider the possibility that the best way to face the storm is to stand in calm confidence, trusting that the storm obeys the Creator's command. He says, "Trust me, stay silent." And we have to decide if we'll obey. Tonight, I want to explore what that means for us in real, practical terms. I want to show you that trusting God and holding your peace isn't a passive response. It's an active stance of faith that can open doors no man can close and bring resolution where your voice alone could only create more chaos. And I promise you, by the time we're finished, you will see that silence in the hands of God can be louder than any shout, any protest, or any frantic effort of our own. Will you join me in that journey? Will you open your heart to the idea that silence might just be the key to unlocking everything you've been praying for? Let's dig deeper, because there's a battle to be won. And it starts here. When you trust in God's voice above the roar of the crowd, when you choose stillness over endless chatter, you tap into a power greater than your own understanding. You invite in a grace that can carry you through the darkest hour. And you discover that faith, when tested in the silence, is faith that can move mountains. That is why we're here. That is why this matters. That's why God says, trust me, stay silent. And that's why you need to hear him now more than ever. Now, let's take that first step together and dive into the heart of this message. We'll look at how we can stand tall in silence, trusting the one who knows every need. We'll see that there's a mighty force in our willingness to surrender, and we'll find the courage to let go, to believe that even when no words are spoken, miracles can happen. Let's begin. I want you to picture something. You're facing a situation so complex that every angle seems blocked. You try to reason your way through. You try to talk your way out. You try to force a solution that only tangles things further. At some point, frustration grips you. You feel your pulse quicken, your anxiety rise. It's in that moment that you hear God's gentle nudge it. Trust me, stay silent. It almost feels counterintuitive, doesn't it? Why be silent when you need to speak up? Why trust when you need answers? Why let go when you want control? Because sometimes silence isn't giving up, it's giving in to divine wisdom. We open the door for God to work in a space that our own words would otherwise fill with human limitations. Imagine you're in the heat of an argument with someone you love. You think if you just said the right thing, you'd fix it. But what happens? The argument escalates, the wounds cut deeper, and suddenly the relationship feels on the brink. The harsh truth is that words can ignite flames that burn bridges beyond repair. But if we paused, if we stepped back in trust, if we embrace the silence with the confidence that God can mend hearts better than we can, we would see healing. We would see a space created for empathy to settle in, for humility to take root, for love to overcome pride. That's the power of silence. It's not an escape, it's a tool to let God's grace flood in. When we fail to recognize that power, we risk deeper conflict and emotional scars that take years to heal. We might end up running in circles, believing we have no choice but to shout louder and push harder. Let's break that cycle. Let's become aware that your silence, directed by God, is a mighty force that can calm storms in people's souls. How do we spot the moment to be silent? We look at our own hearts. We ask, am I speaking from a place of love or a place of fear? Am I fueled by ego or guided by wisdom? When we detect the swirling chaos in our soul, that's our cue to step back, breathe, and trust the one who can bring clarity to any confusion. That's the check engine light for our spirit, reminding us to let God take the wheel. You might be thinking, but I'm a doer. I like to solve problems. I can't just sit around in silence. Let me remind you, silence is not idleness. It's strategic. It's preparing the ground for something greater. It's an invitation for you to listen to God's plan. If you look at biblical accounts, like the walls of Jericho falling after the Israelites marched quietly the appointed time, you'll see that obedience and silence led to victory. That principle holds true today. Our vantage point is limited, but God sees the entire battlefield. So we trust Him, we stay silent, and in doing so, we align ourselves with a power that has no boundaries. Now, I want to share a personal memory that changed my perspective. Years ago, I found myself tangled in a situation where false accusations threatened my reputation. My instinct was to shout back, to defend, to fight fire with fire. But something nudged me to stop. Something reminded me that the truths know defense when God is in control. So I waited, I prayed. I took my restless thoughts to the Lord. Was it easy? Absolutely not. Did I want to run out there and speak my peace? You better believe it. But a peaceful spirit descended on me, and I can tell you, that moment of surrender unleashed a resolution I could have never orchestrated on my own. The lies were exposed, my integrity was preserved, and in the end, the story testified to God's faithfulness far louder than my words could have. Take hold of that lesson. When your back is against the wall, trust God. When your mind is screaming for a response, stay silent until He directs you otherwise. Feel the tension build, then release it into His hands. Watch how He orchestrates events in ways you could never imagine. That's the power of trusting Him. That's the gift of silence employed at the right time. And that's a lesson each of us can carry into our toughest battles. But let's not stop here. There's another layer. Trusting God in silence isn't just about conflict resolution or waiting for vindication. It's also about cultivating spiritual depth, about growing a faith that transcends circumstances. Don't you want that? Don't you long for a faith that isn't easily shaken by the wind and waves? A faith that stands secure because it rests on the unwavering promises of the Almighty. That's where we're heading next. Because when God says, trust me, stay silent, it's not just for one crisis or one argument. It's a lifelong invitation into the kind of relationship that shapes our destiny. Let's keep moving forward. Everywhere we turn, people are trying to be heard. We live in an age of endless opinions, rapid information, and public platforms where everyone competes for the spotlight. That thirst for attention can become a trap. We might believe our value is determined by how loudly we can shout or how convincingly we can argue our point. But let me tell you, true strength often speaks in whispers. Real transformation often happens in the unseen spaces. It's the seed buried in the ground that eventually becomes the towering tree. That's the kind of growth silence can foster when it's fueled by trust in God. Think about the times you've scrolled through your phone and felt overwhelmed by noise. Voices telling you who you should be or what you should feel. It's exhausting. Now imagine stepping away from all that into a moment of divine quiet. You might hear a voice you haven't listened to in a long time. The gentle voice of the Holy Spirit guiding you, comforting you, instructing you. You might discover insights about yourself and about God that you never had the space to recognize in the chaos. That's the beauty of trusting Him enough to be silent. The alternative is scary, living in a constant state of mental and emotional clutter. If we don't pause to hear what God is saying, we become consumed by external opinions and internal anxieties. We lose our center. We lose the ability to discern truth from lies. We start to rely solely on our own strength which is never enough when the storms rage. The result is burnout, disillusionment, and sometimes despair. That's not what you were created for. You were made for deeper communion, for a purpose that goes far beyond the noise of the crowd. So how do we actually cultivate this spirit of silent trust in our daily lives? Start small. Begin each morning with a moment of quiet prayer, no phones, no distractions, just you and God. Ask Him to speak to you. Ask Him to calm the chatter in your mind. Practice listening more than you speak in your relationships. The next time someone criticizes you or a situation tries to drag you into negativity, pause. Breathe. Instead of reacting defensively, silently invite God's presence. Ask Him to guide your words, if any words are even necessary. Notice the difference. Sense how much clearer your thoughts become, how much steadier your emotions feel when you let God filter your responses over time. This becomes a lifestyle, not just an occasional tactic. Here's a story from a dear friend of mine. She was facing a life-altering decision about her career. Every advisor, every family member, every social media post seemed to offer conflicting opinions. She felt paralyzed. Instead of drowning in external voices, she took a weekend away, just her, some journals, and her Bible. She prayed, she wept, she listened. And in that sacred silence, clarity emerged. She felt led in a direction that most people around her didn't understand. But she knew it was from God. She acted on that silent revelation. And not only did her career flourish beyond expectation, but she also found a deeper sense of purpose that continues to bless others. That's what trusting God in silence can do. It opens you to divine direction that defies human logic. We need that kind of divine guidance. We need to break free from the tyranny of everyone else's opinions and find our marching orders straight from the commander in chief of our souls. We need to remember that in the quiet, God is shaping us, teaching us, preparing us. If we run around filling every silent moment with noise, we rob ourselves of the chance to grow. Growth often happens in the stillness, in the moments when we lean back and say, okay, God, I don't have the solution, but I trust that you do. And that trust is transformative. It changes how you walk into a room. It changes how you carry yourself when criticism flies your way. It changes how you respond to life disappointments. When you let God's message of trust me, stay silent sink in, you anchor your life to something unshakable. People will see that in you. They'll sense a peace that surpasses understanding. They'll notice that when everyone else is in a frenzy, you're untroubled. They might even ask, how do you do it? And that's your chance to testify, not with pride, but with humble gratitude. I chose to trust God more than my circumstances. I chose to stay silent long enough for Him to speak. So where does this lead us? It leads us to a powerful realization. Trust and silence aren't just spiritual buzzwords. They're living principles that can revolutionize your life if you let them. Are you willing to be that person who stands steady when the ground shakes? Are you ready to stop relying on your own limited strength and start depending on limitless grace? Because the moment you decide to do so, you'll find doors opening, hearts healing, and courage blossoming in places you thought were barren. And that, my friends, is just the beginning. let's press on toward the conclusion that ties all of this together. Because the journey doesn't end with knowing, it ends with acting, with stepping boldly into the future God designed for you. As we wrap this all into our final thoughts, I want to remind you why we're here. We're here because life is too precious to waste on battles that lead nowhere. We're here because your soul longs for peace in a world addicted to noise. We're here because the divine invitation, trust me, stay silent, is not a passive cop-out, but an active call to deeper faith, to unwavering reliance on a power far greater than our own. When God tells you to trust Him, He's offering you the kind of hope that endures any storm. When He instructs you to remain silent, He's teaching you to let go of pointless debates, exhausting arguments, and the relentless pursuit of validation from others. Think back on those main ideas we explored. First, we saw that silence can heal broken relationships, mend wounds, and prevent the destructive spiral of words spoken in anger. By stepping away from the impulse to retaliate or defend, you give God space to work miracles in hearts, including your own. Second, we understood that silence is a conduit for spiritual growth and clarity of direction. When we hush the world's static, we can hear that still, small voice guiding us to choices that align with God's best for our lives. These two principles form the scaffolding for a life that not only weathers the storms, but shines as a beacon for others who are still fighting battles in the dark. Now, let's bring those lessons into sharp focus. Every time you're tempted to jump into the chaos, be it a heated argument, a panic-driven decision, or a quest for social media likes, pause. Remember that silence is not weakness. Silence can be your greatest weapon when God is at the center. Remember that trust isn't wishful thinking. It's the assurance that God is in control, that He has plans for your good, even if you can't yet see them. When you let these truths settle into the fabric of your daily existence, you'll notice a change. You'll feel more grounded. You'll respond more thoughtfully. You'll live more peacefully. I want to challenge you right here, right now, to take action. Because a message without action is just a pleasant thought drifting by. Are you wrestling with a personal conflict at home or at work? Try a different approach. Instead of firing back or plunging into yet another debate, step aside. Pray. Sit in silence. Ask God to handle what you can't. See if that doesn't turn things around in ways you never imagined. Perhaps you're struggling with a major life decision, unsure which path to take. Instead of researching endlessly or polling everyone you know, carve out some silent space. Listen for God's direction. Trust that He'll show you the way. Test Him on it, not by challenging His power, but by inviting His presence into the silence. Let me also speak to your heart if you're feeling hopeless. Maybe the stress is piling up. Maybe you're fatigued by health issues, financial burdens, or broken dreams. Maybe you're on the verge of giving up in your desperation. It might feel like shouting is all you can do. But consider this. Sometimes the loudest cry for help is the silent surrender of your heart to God. Lay your burdens at His feet. Let the tears flow if they must, but let your words rest for a moment. Breathe. Receive the peace that descends when you stop trying to fix everything yourself. That's what trusting God looks like. It's a daily practice of releasing control and admitting our limitations. It's a gentle but powerful state of being that says, God, I choose to believe you've got this. Yes, it takes courage to trust. Yes, it takes humility to remain silent in a noisy world. But let me tell you, the blessings that flow from that posture of trust and humility far outweigh the temporary relief you might get from winning an argument or venting your frustrations. God can do more in a moment of your silence than you can accomplish in a lifetime of your own effort. That's a reality I've witnessed over and over again, both in my life and in the lives of countless others. So here's my invitation. Dare to live differently. Dare to step out of the whirlwind of noise and into the sanctuary of silence. Dare to trust the one who formed you, who knows you better than you know yourself, and who sees the path you need to walk. Let your silence speak volumes about your faith. Let it inspire those around you who are still caught in the endless cycle of conflict and confusion. Let it bring you to a place where you can see the fingerprints of God in every detail of your life. Don't confuse this silence with passivity. You're still moving forward. You're still making choices. You're still positioning yourself for the blessings God has in store. But you're doing it from a place of calm assurance. Rather than restless striving, you're trusting that the creator of the universe can do immeasurably more than you could ever ask or imagine. And when you live that way, you become a testament to the power of grace, a living example that faith isn't just a word. It's a lifestyle of expectancy, hope, and resilience. As we conclude, I want you to carry a seed of hope back into your life. Yes, your challenges may remain. Yes, the world around you will still rage with noise. But here's the difference: that you now know you have the choice to trust God and embrace silent surrender. You can stand before every difficulty with a calm spirit, knowing your strength doesn't come from outward force, but from inward faith. You can walk away from fruitless arguments, holding fast to the knowledge that love and truth ultimately prevail. You can quiet your anxious thoughts, drawing near to the one who holds your past, present, and future in his hands. If there's one thing I hope you'll remember, it's this: God's message is not complicated. It may feel challenging, but it's profoundly simple. Trust me, stay silent. In that sacred silence, mountains can move. In that place of trust, hearts can mend. In that moment of surrender, destinies can shift. So don't walk away from here unchanged. Allow your next step to reflect your newfound understanding. Start tonight, start tomorrow morning, but start. Commit to moments of stillness. Practice letting God fill the gap where your words once rushed. Keep your eyes open for his handiwork, because trust me, he'll show up in ways that will leave you speechless in the best possible way. Walk out of this place with a renewed sense of purpose. Walk out with your head held high and your spirit at ease, because you're not carrying the world on your shoulders anymore. You're handing it over to the master who can handle it all. Let that give you hope. Let that lift your burdens. Let that propel you into the life you were meant to live, because God is still speaking. And if we dare to be silent, we might just hear him say, "My child, I've got this. Trust me." Let that be your anthem. Let that be your guiding light. And let that be the reason you never give up, never back down, and never forget that in the silence, He is working miracles. Thank you, and God bless you.